also the time to choose Canada.
A Buy Canadian initiative.
And Canadians seem to be listening.
Canadian dairy. Oh, Canadian flour. Oh, local spring mix from the Greenbelt.
I'm trying to look and buy everything Canadian.
I'm just looking for the cheapest price right now.
Very conscious. Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at the labels, making sure they're made in Canada or Mexico.
The website Made in Canada, which lists Canadian products, saw so much traffic it overwhelmed the site.
For years, we were probably only getting maybe 5,000 or 10,000 people a month who read our resource. And then, the last few days, it's probably been, 50, 100,000 people in a day.
The simplest way to know if what you're buying is Canadian is to read the labels.
The golden standard is product of Canada. Product of Canada means
Canada has just dealt a major blow to the US auto industry by aligning with the EU in retaliation against Trump's latest tariffs. With supply chains at risk and billions of dollars on the line, could this move push the US auto sector into a full-blown crisis? The ripple effects of this trade war could reshape the North American economy for years to come. The re-election of Donald Trump as US president in 2024 marked a turning point in US-Canada relations. His America First ideology and skepticism toward free trade agreements have steadily strained ties between the two nations. Trump has repeatedly criticized existing trade deals, arguing that they put American workers and businesses at a disadvantage, a significant departure from decades of bipartisan support for free trade in Washington. Tensions escalated when Trump announced a proposed 25% tariff on all Canadian goods entering the US. This sweeping measure would impact a wide range of products, from raw materials to finished goods, potentially disrupting supply chains and raising costs for American consumers. Additionally, Trump suggested a 10% tariff on Canadian energy exports, a move that could severely affect the flow of oil and electricity from Canada to the US. Given that Canada is the largest foreign supplier of energy to the US, these tariffs threaten a critical component of North America's energy infrastructure. Adding fuel to the fire, Trump made provocative comments suggesting that Canada would be better off as the 51st US state, citing a disputed $200 billion annual trade deficit. These remarks have only deepened the growing divide between the two nations. However, economists and trade experts have disputed this claim, arguing that it likely includes factors beyond simple trade imbalances, such as US defense spending, that indirectly benefits Canada. The US administration implemented a 30-day negotiation window during which the tariffs were suspended. This period was intended to allow discussions and potential concessions from Canada, particularly concerning border security and efforts to combat drug trafficking. Trump specifically raised concerns about the flow of fentanyl into the US, despite data from US Customs and Border Protection indicating that less than 1% of fentanyl imports originate from Canada. In response, Canada reacted swiftly and decisively. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau categorically rejected Trump's claims about Canadian statehood, calling them an insult to the deep historical ties between the two nations. He reaffirmed Canada's sovereignty and independence, rallying domestic support with a firm stance that there was not a snowball's chance in hell of Canada becoming the 51st state. The Canadian public also responded with strong opposition. Spontaneous boycotts of American products spread across the country, with consumers actively seeking out Canadian-made alternatives.
For 3 days, Canadians have been hearing messages like these.
Now is also the time to choose Canada.
A Buy Canadian initiative.
And Canadians seem to be listening.
Canadian dairy. Oh, Canadian flour. Oh, local spring mix from the Greenbelt.
I'm trying to look and buy everything Canadian.
I'm just looking for the cheapest price right now.
Very conscious. Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at the labels, making sure they're made in Canada or Mexico.
The website Made in Canada, which lists Canadian products, saw so much traffic it overwhelmed the site.
For years, we were probably only getting maybe 5,000 or 10,000 people a month who read our resource. And then, the last few days, it's probably been, 50, 100,000 people in a day.
The simplest way to know if what you're buying is Canadian is to read the labels.
the golden standard is product of Canada. Product of Canada means It's manufactured in Canada using ingredients from Canada.
Social media campaigns led by Canadians gained traction, with some even canceling planned vacations to the US in protest. In a particularly striking move, several provincial liquor control boards went so far as to remove American alcohol products from their shelves, potentially affecting an estimated $1 billion in annual sales. As tensions with the US escalated, Canada began shifting its focus eastward, exploring deeper economic ties with the European Union. This strategic pivot builds upon the existing Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, between Canada and the EU, which has been provisionally in effect since 2017. Since its implementation, CETA has boosted bilateral trade by an estimated 60%, eliminating tariffs on 98% of goods exchanged between the two regions. Recent high-level meetings between Canadian and EU officials have fueled speculation about even closer cooperation. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau traveled to Brussels for discussions with top EU leaders, including European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa. These talks focused on strengthening economic ties and exploring new avenues of collaboration. Von der Leyen emphasized the importance of trust in an unpredictable world, while Trudeau spoke of the deepening friendship and partnership between Canada and the EU.
Indeed, the story between the European Union and Canada is a story of beneficial investment and trade. It is the story of good allies, and it is the story of trusted friends. And trust is very much needed in an unpredictable world. I'm very much looking forward to discuss the topics of the G7 presidency of Canada, be it the steadfast and unwavering support for Ukraine, be it the decarbonization of our economies and the question how we increase the competitiveness and move towards circularity, and of course also the topic of trade. Trade can be very beneficial and lead to a win-win situation. CETA has proven it. Indeed, since we have CETA, trade and investment on both sides have increased by 66%. This is excellent and beneficial for both sides. It is good for the consumers, it is good for the business.
One key area of potential cooperation between Canada and the EU lies in critical minerals and clean energy. Canada's abundant natural resources combined with the EU's push for green technology create a natural synergy. The two have already established a strategic partnership on raw materials, aiming to reduce reliance on other suppliers and secure stable supply chains for essential components in electric vehicles and renewable energy technologies. This collaboration could position Canada as a key supplier of crucial minerals such as nickel, cobalt, and lithium, which are vital for the EU's green transition. Another growing area of cooperation is defense and security. Negotiations are underway for an EU-Canada security and defense partnership, which could include joint naval exercises, defense industry information sharing, and the docking of military vessels in each other's ports for repairs and resupply. This potential agreement reflects a broader trend of the EU adopting a more proactive role in global defense, partly in response to uncertainty surrounding US commitments to traditional alliances. However, deeper integration between Canada and the EU is not without challenges. The geographical distance remains a significant hurdle, particularly for industries reliant on just-in-time supply chains. Regulatory differences and the complexities of aligning with EU standards could also pose obstacles for Canadian businesses. Additionally, the EU's internal divisions and complex decision-making processes may complicate efforts to strengthen ties with Canada. The potential impact on the US auto industry is a major concern, as the sector relies heavily on the free flow of parts and vehicles across North American borders. If Canadian suppliers begin prioritizing European markets or retaliatory tariffs make Canadian-sourced components more expensive, US automakers could face significant cost increases and production disruptions. This could lead to job losses and plant closures in key automotive hubs, particularly in states like Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. Expert opinions on the potential outcomes vary. Some analysts warn that the US auto industry could face a serious crisis if the current trajectory continues, emphasizing that the integrated nature of the North American auto market means disruptions in one country will inevitably impact the others. Higher costs could make US-made vehicles less competitive globally, potentially leading to a loss of market share to European and Asian manufacturers. Others, however, argue that the industry's resilience and adaptability could mitigate the worst effects. They point out that automakers have already been adjusting to various challenges, including the shift toward electric vehicles and ongoing supply chain disruptions. Some suggest that US companies might pivot to new suppliers or modify production processes to reduce reliance on Canadian inputs. Meanwhile, China and Russia are also observing the developments closely. Both countries have long sought to challenge US global influence, and the current tensions in North America could present opportunities for them to expand their economic and diplomatic reach. China, in particular, may see a chance to strengthen its position in global supply chains, especially in industries like automotive and clean energy, where it already holds significant influence. The next few weeks will be crucial as the negotiation window set by the US administration unfolds. Intense diplomatic efforts are expected from all sides. The Canadian government is likely to continue resisting US pressure while simultaneously seeking stronger trade partnerships with the EU and other allies. Meanwhile, US officials, particularly those representing states with strong economic ties to Canada, may push for a more balanced approach.
I am glad that we're pushing back against China and Mexico when it comes to fentanyl poisoning of America. I am glad we're putting everybody on notice that the old way of doing business is over.
As Mexico prepares retaliatory tariffs, President Claudia Sheinbaum spoke today with Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who announced a 25% tax on $20 billion worth of US goods, warning Americans of the costs.
Tariffs against Canada will put your jobs at risk.
Businesses and governments continuously adapt to evolving conditions. Regardless of the outcome, it is clear that the era of taking US-Canada economic ties for granted has ended, marking the beginning of a new chapter in North American trade relations.
Well, we need to be united, strong, and smart. We need to recognize this is a critical moment for our country. We need to recognize that we can get through this and we can win, but we can only do that if we do the right things. So what I think we need to do today is publish a detailed retaliation list. It needs to be big, bigger than our retaliation ultimately will be. It should be $200 billion worth, and it needs to be very specific, because what we need to recognize is President Trump doesn't really care about us. He cares about Americans. And so we need to use the market power that Canada has as the largest export market for the US to activate those internal stakeholders in the US and get them to say to the president, wait a minute, this is going to hurt us.
Is there not a risk, however, that retaliatory tariffs will only turn up the temperature with this president instead of using diplomacy to cool it down and to find a way out of this?
Trump's sweeping tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China have sparked an unprecedented global backlash. In a historic move, all three nations announced retaliatory measures, Canada imposing $30 billion in tariffs on US goods, Mexico launching Plan B, and China vowing to take action through the WTO. With key US exports, including energy supplies and automobiles, now at risk, experts warn that this trade war could drain hundreds of billions from the global economy. Is this the beginning of an economic meltdown that no one can stop? Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Trump's tariff policy includes a 25% levy on goods from Canada and Mexico, along with a 10% tariff on Canadian energy products. Additionally, a 10% tariff has been placed on all imports from China. The president defended these measures by citing concerns over the fentanyl crisis and illegal immigration, invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to implement the tariffs swiftly. The White House released a fact sheet outlining key reasons behind the decision. It highlighted that over 10 million illegal migrants attempted to enter the US under the previous administration, including a rising number of Chinese nationals and individuals on the US terror watch list. Encounters with migrants at the northern border with Canada have also surged, affecting various aspects of American life. Last fiscal year, US Customs and Border Protection seized more than 21,000 pounds of fentanyl at the border, just a fraction of the drugs being smuggled into the country.
Europe is equally vital for America, as the Americans cannot face the global challenges alone. I would like to echo what our President Roberta Metsola said after the elections. Our mentality is no longer America elects and Europe reacts, but Europe acts.
The United States' national security was once threatened by a global oversupply of steel and aluminum, but new measures have been put in place to protect it. Former President Donald Trump defended his decision, stating, "We're not going to be the stupid country any longer. Make your product in the USA, and there are no tariffs." He predicted that the results of these tariffs would be spectacular. Canada responded swiftly and decisively. In a press conference, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced retaliatory tariffs matching the scale of Trump's imposing an immediate 25% tariff on $30 billion worth of US goods. Within 21 days, additional tariffs would extend to $125 billion in American products. The targeted items included a broad range of goods such as beer, fruits, fruit juices, clothing, sports equipment, and household appliances. The Canadian public reacted strongly. At recent sporting events, including NHL games in Ottawa and Calgary, as well as an NBA game in Toronto, fans booed during the US national anthem. In a more direct response, several Canadian provinces, including Ontario, British Columbia, Quebec, Manitoba, and Nova Scotia, announced plans to remove American liquor brands from government store shelves. Ontario Premier Doug Ford declared, "Every year, the LCBO sells nearly $1 billion worth of American wine, beer, spirits, and seltzers. Not anymore. Starting Tuesday, we're removing American products from LCBO shelves." He called the US tariffs unjustified, unfair, and illegal, arguing that they violate the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, established in 2018 during Trump's first term. Meanwhile, Mexico's response, initially more measured, has become increasingly firm. President Claudia Sheinbaum rejected U.S. accusations of cartel alliances, stating, "We categorically reject the White House's slander against the Mexican government." She announced the implementation of Plan B, a set of retaliatory measures, though specific details have yet to be released. Sheinbaum also proposed a collaborative public health approach to the fentanyl crisis, urging both nations to assemble a team of experts to address the issue. Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard echoed these concerns, emphasizing the potential impact on Mexican industries and workers.